Welcome to the Bulls from the Go podcast. I'm Daryl,
And I'm Jabari, aka Delaybaro.
and we'll be bringing you weekly Bulls podcasts addressing all the nuances of the games, storylines, and hot topics throughout the course of this season.
And be sure to follow us on social media at Bulls from the Go for updates and alerts and new content. In this episode, we get into Bulls talk on everything offseason, summer league, and preseason as the Bulls get ready to tip off another regular season with the overhauled roster. So stay tuned for more updates.
So, offseason, I guess we can start with the draft. Were you disappointed? Were you excited? Or how do you kind of feel about us landing with IO?
I thought that was best case scenario, honestly. I thought getting him, Stacey King said it a couple times in preseason. He's basically a first round talent, and they got him
He
in
says
the
that all
second
the
round.
time.
Yeah, it's appropriate though. I had Io I had him for sure. I thought the Jazz would take the flyer late in that first round. A couple other teams like that, who ended up going point guards later. But I mean, look, he's a Chicago kid. And aside from that, I think his game is just conducive to the league more than even than college. And he played great in college. He's an all around type of guard. Like obviously, he's not like more of a one way or the other, like more of a scorer or a defender. Like he does pretty much everything well. He was always like the guy who would flirt with a triple double in college. Like he plays with a lot of passion. Obviously, like I
Yeah.
think he really is like that, prototypical like Chicago type of point guard too. And you see it in this game. And I like the fact that they kind of, went off the pulse of the fans. I feel like with that pick too, because a lot of times, you scout and you like your guys for a reason, but not only was there's situations where guys will fall. Like a lot of teams, they won't want to take like whatever risk. It's like, okay, why is this guy falling right now? I
Right.
don't really know why he was falling to begin with, but it's like,
Well,
do you even know like what?
no, I was gonna say that's a good question. So this whole time when Io got drafted, I feel like as a Chicago fan, right, we were all super ecstatic, right? Illinois kid,
Right.
the whole 9 yards. But like in terms of him falling that far, I didn't actually hear anything about what. You know how usually when these things happen, they'll say, "Oh, they had a phantom knee injury or their medicals came back
Yeah,
weird." Like I didn't hear a single story. Did you?
I didn't. I mean, I'm trying to think, because there are a couple guys that I think like that kind of late. This dude, the Clippers ended up drafting later than he had projections probably a couple weeks for the draft, like top 10. Keon Johnson, he has slid like later, I think first round. But yeah, I really don't know. I think I'm happy he did fall. I think a guy like that too. Not only are you going to your hometown, like he already had a chip in his shoulder to begin with, but it's really like you have this like vendetta versus all these, GMs that passed on you really. So I think it's just gonna help the Bulls out even more.
Right. Yeah. So I think it may be another one of those things where one thing I did hear was a lot of he's decent at a lot of things, right? But there's no
Mhm.
one like standout skill.
Right.
And so I don't know if maybe that's the closest that we could attribute it to.
Yeah, and that's the weird part about drafting. Drafting is always like imperfect science because you want to swing for what you want to call upside, and a lot of GMs, whether they want to believe it or not, like every pick you get judged harshly. Like you're either draft well as a franchise or you're not that good. It's because you're in that position and you're end up being in that position every year because of that. You don't, these picks
Right.
aren't panning out. So I think it's just a mixture of people who fall on draft day, but then you having like your board. I think from what AK and Mark Eversley were saying like after the draft, like it seemed like Io wasn't even on their radar because they thought he was going to get
They
picked
thought he
before he
wasn't
got
going to be
here.
there.
But
Yeah.
the fact that he was available and they took him and weren't like, okay, we need to see who else is here in this range. Like no, if somebody who you liked a lot and you didn't think you could get him fell to you, those are the best picks because you still coveted them in a way that these other teams that passed on them didn't. So.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. Like in terms of him kind of being one of those players who is going to look at how the draft went and then have that chip on his shoulder like, oh, okay, I know
Yeah.
that. I mean, he even said it, right? There's not 38 players better than me in this draft. So
And there's not though. That's the thing, I mean,
there really isn't.
you
Yeah.
always get punished for playing college basketball now. In a
Right.
way, I mean, it's always like that push and pull, but I feel like sometimes you can
Yeah.
get unfairly punished but he's a dominant college player. Yeah, they didn't have the best X in the tournament, but You
Yeah.
can judge off these couple games or a body of work off a career. I think he's more than shown that he has that upside, even that you look for in a prospect. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I remember draft night, so we were texting like the Bulls pick was coming up.
yeah.
Obviously they went to like commercial and then
Oh no,
drafted this man during the commercial. It's like, come on. Out of all the drafts, right? Like alma mater school, like I was really hoping they would pick IO. He gets drafted.
man, I know you're a Vibe alum. I know you're going crazy when that happened. I was just happy. I was just like, I was rooting for U of I, like I said in the tournament anyway, just because obviously the closest Chicago connected
Right.
school, and you got a Chicago guy on the team.
Right.
I wanted that USC, U of I.
I know.
Couldn't happen, but yeah, I was just like, I wouldn't say shocked. But I'm just, he's available here. I did not
Right.
think that was possible at all.
Right. So yeah, there's definitely I feel like a lot of excitement from the city, right? Once Io got drafted, kind of heading that momentum into summer league. Um, but then right before that was free agency, right?
Free agency was right after, yeah, it's right after the draft, yeah.
Or I guess I meant right before
Oh, summer league.
summer league, because
I
like
think,
Demar was there, right? Like
um,
watching some of the players.
yeah, I think it was happening like the same time or whatever. Because I know
Okay,
Lonzo was. I want to say that might have broke right around summer league, or maybe that same week. Um,
right.
but yeah, it's been a world. I think what also is good for Io too is the Bulls suddenly have a deep guard core, which in previous years we haven't had that, and that's been
Yeah,
issue because it's a guards, obviously it's a guards league, and having excellent big men, you need that to either it's a star big man. If it's not your big man's a star, you need to have like those supporting guys who can just complement those really good guards. But the Bulls haven't had that. They barely obviously acquired Vooch last year. You got Zach, but in terms of depth, they haven't had those guys like a Alex Caruso to come off the bench and play multiple guard spots.
right.
Kobe White can do that too now. The fact that he's not being tasked with being like this, traditional point guard, he can come in after the injury hopefully and
Yep.
find the role as just like a spark plug. And I think Io can ease into that where he will play at some point in the season. I think just because Kobe's out right now. If there's any other injuries to, obviously you don't want that to happen, but if
Yeah.
any just situation arises, like he might be called upon, and I think he can play right now because he can play defense too to an extent.
Oh,
He
for
can have,
sure. No, he
he can
can.
have some growing pains, but I think he's going to
Yeah.
contribute there for
No,
sure.
I mean that's kind of what I want to get into. So just like that whole time frame of draft, free agency, summer league, right? It's like so at this point the roster is clearly being overhauled. Like we got Vooch back in the trade deadline.
Right.
I feel like the momentum kind of left there because right, Zach went into health and safety protocols. Bulls go on a losing streak. The defense looks terrible.
I know.
Um, and so you kind of left the season. You were like hopeful for the future, but at the same time, you weren't quite sure how free agency was going to shape out. Free agency comes around. AK and Eversley come out swinging, right? So we get Lonzo out the gate. Like that, we've needed a point guard of this kind of caliber, honestly, since D Rose left.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so that was huge. Demar comes what the next day
I
or a
think
few days later.
at least a couple days later, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah. If not more.
Caruso was the same day, right, as Lonzo.
Yes, I believe.
I
Yeah.
think that news broke the same day. So, obviously, a lot of the Lakers fans were like, take care of Alex Caruso. Like they just love that dude, and so, and we can get into Caruso in a bit because he was doing his thing in preseason.
Oh yeah, he definitely.
Um, but yeah, it's just like the formation of this team. Like AK and Eversley clearly put their stamp on like this is their team now, right? So, do
Right.
you want to talk about some of the guys who have exited and your kind of your feelings? Is it bittersweet? How are you feeling about the Jim Boylan era and beyond of the
Um,
Bulls?
I think it'll be looked back upon as just what it was, which is a rebuild. I think at the end of the day, and that was the problem I think Garpax had towards the end, what I just mentioned before about having a pulse on the fans, and they like really lost, sight of
Yeah,
it towards the end. Just because I think it was like just a little still after a while with, going through everything with the D Rose era and that unfortunately, at the end of the day, not working out. Like there were some great years. Obviously, we
Right.
did a lot of great things during that era, but post D Rose era and post Jimmy Butler, I feel like they were just trying to, as franchises do, hit and swing on big picks, but they never bottomed out to try and be as bad as possible. How these teams are, like the Thunder, for instance. I love Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I love some of the players on the team, but they're deliberately trying to get draft leverage.
Yeah.
And the Bulls were kind of stuck in the middle. We're like, okay, maybe we want to make the playoffs. Maybe we want to. We don't want to be super bad though. And
Yeah,
Marcus,
it was
yeah,
always this battle of like being competitive, but then it's like we're clearly not competing right now. But it's just like you can't straddle that fence well.
you can't, and you just that's the worst place to be in pro sports, especially basketball, because it's just purgatory. And then your young star, they're not only are they grown up around a losing environment, they just when is stuff going to change for you? So like I think the stability with having a coach come back for a Zach LaVine is going to be
Yeah,
underrated this year, things like that. But the Jim
that's
Boylan
true.
era in general, I liked some of the picks, but once again, I thought they were just really safe. You know what I mean? Like even they went that year, they went Wendell Carter Jr. I thought I was like, man, he's gonna be solid. He's gonna be a solid point
Right.
forever.
We
But
saw him in summer league, right? We were there, excited.
but I'm like, obviously Michael Porter had the backers, but I had mocked him to the Bulls during that year. I was like, this is the guy I'm about
Right.
to cry just because if you're wrong on the seventh pick this year, you know what that's gonna tell you? You can be bad and have a better pick next year, which is kind of crazy. Wendell
Right.
was good enough to start from the beginning, basically, but that
Right.
kind of captures ceiling as a rookie starter and then this other young team where you're trying to put things together. So I think it was
Yeah.
a lot of that during the, with Markkinen and Wendell Carter Jr., even Kobe White to extend like more safer picks. They're all good players in their own right, but
Yeah.
it was a bad system for them to develop because they didn't know, the team didn't have a real direction. So
Yeah.
I
And so
will
yeah.
I will
Oh, go
say,
ahead.
I'm going to cut you off, but I will say over the last couple of years, I think Daniel Gafford's the guy that I think would have been perfect on this team. But
Gafford, no, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely happy for him doing his thing in Washington, but yeah,
right,
no, Gafford. If you look at our front line now, it's just like after if God forbid something happens to Vooch, if he has to miss significant amount of time, like that's obviously Gafford's not replacing that offensively, but you would feel a little bit better about your backup if he was still on the team for sure.
right, he's basically I wouldn't call him starting caliber center yet, just because he has to show that. But what he was doing down the stretch in Washington with Thomas Bryant out, he's basically probably going to start now. So I mean, I completely agree.
Yeah.
But is anybody back to the people who left? Anybody you're going to miss from this era? Chris Felicio, Denzel Valentine.
I'm always good for a random irrational confidence Denzel game. Like that was always good
Save
for a
that.
good laugh.
Oh, good. Okay. I was to say you saved that, but
No, yeah, I mean the first thing that comes to mind, right, is obviously him taking that three, that ill-advised three. I'm
no,
sure you know which one I'm talking about from last season.
what are you doing?
So I feel like he basically made his own exit right around that time.
Yeah.
For better for worse, I mean, it's one of those things where he, with this new regime, he probably wasn't going to be in their future plans anyway. So, all jokes aside, right, it wasn't that shot. But yeah, I don't know. I always found myself kind of enjoying Denzel for what he was. Like, I really didn't have super high expectations for the team, right? So it's just like Denzel come in, hit some, launch catapult threes.
Regardless
Um,
of the situation.
regardless of the situation, right? I will say I liked Felicio coming in kind of as that like waving the white flag situation. So like Felicio, I feel like whenever he was in the game, it was either like our rotations were extremely hampered, like injuries or
Mhm.
whatnot, or it's just like, yeah, it's that kind of game, or it's Felicio time. So
Yeah,
Felicio, I feel like was a polarizing fan favorite, but
it was. For a lot
with
of different reasons,
for a
but
lot of different reasons, but I feel like with him being off the team at this point, it definitely kind of ushered in this new era, right? Because
I was gonna
Felicio's been
say,
here for what, the last 4 or 5 years,
he was here when D Rose and Joe King were still here.
right?
He
Yeah.
was
So
like a rookie on that team. he was longest tenured. I think after that they got Denzel that next year. That's when Jimmy Butler had
There we go. Yeah.
three alphas that year. We had
Yeah.
those guys, D Wade.
Yeah, that 1 year experiment that did not go well.
That was still weirdly a fun year for me. I thought
No, it was.
no, but
It
it was
well,
so weird when they like initially constructed because we all thought like this was like how could this work, but there were parts where like it really worked. At the end of the day, Rondo got hurt in the playoffs, so
no, that's true. Yeah, who knows, if that hadn't happened.
yeah,
That season definitely feels like a lost tapes kind of season where it's just
oh,
like
for sure,
if you just go down the future, people are gonna completely forget that season happened.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, they
Like D
will
Wade in a Bulls jersey, you'd be like, huh? Oh yeah, he did play for the Bulls.
exactly
Yeah. Um. So summer league, how did you feel about Io there? Because I feel like the main two players I was watching was Io and Marco,
right.
right? I think Io was sharing a lot of guard responsibilities with Dotson. So
Mhm.
I think we were talking about this through text, but like I was basically saying like if Io has the ball, you're going to see a different player.
Right,
And
right.
he was off ball pretty much all of summer league,
Yeah,
especially with Pat Williams kind of playing that guard forward role.
uh-huh.
So how do you feel about that whole kind of segment of summer league?
No, I think you had it like perfect right there because I think Dot didn't play one game or two, and Io was like really feeling
Right.
all in his
Yeah.
hands majority of the time.
Yeah.
I thought it was comfortable in that format though. I mean, for me, summer league is always about comfortability. You can't look
Right.
at stats or numbers, things like that. It's just how they're performing relative to their other players, and they're in similar standing basically. So that's all. There's rookies, people trying to come into the league, returning players looking for more minutes the next year. But I thought it was comfortable. He didn't like stand out where wow he's not ready for any of this. He's definitely has to work on a couple things in terms of just like outside shooting and playmaking, just staying under control at times. But I thought his aggressiveness on defense, his clutch factor, we saw that in the preseason a couple times where hitting some late buckets. And people think obviously it's just a preseason game, it doesn't mean anything. But for him, for a rookie coming into the league, just having that confidence, your teammates, if there ever were a situation where you're in the game crunch time defensively or offensive purposes, like they can trust you to an extent. And I
Yeah.
think he's just going through those stages where he's building up, like,
You
you
can
know,
see it too.
yeah, respect
Yeah.
the team already. Like Zach was saying, like how like he
Right.
loves him already, like super clutch, basically, like doesn't let stuff get to him. So I thought
Yeah.
summer league, he just showed that he's ready to handle whatever role comes to him this year. Because like I said, it's not gonna be a ready. It's not a ready-made role for him right now.
Yeah. No, I will say I was definitely a little nervous, like when Io first got drafted, because Billy Donovan, or not Billy Donovan, AK was talking about how the I think there was a question about what's your favorite part about his game, and his answer was based around like more intangibles, right? Like he wasn't naming a specific basketball skill. And I feel like usually when coaches do that, it's like coach speak to try and like diminish the fact that they know this player doesn't have a standout skill.
Right.
But then I kept hearing that echoed by everybody else on the team, like as training camp, transpired, as preseason, all of that. Everybody was just talking about how fearless he is, how hard he works, how much energy he provides on the defensive end, all of that. So it's just like those are things we all knew about him at Illinois. He was just able to show the other, offensive part of his game. But it's clear that that's not coach speak at this point, right? That's not GM speak.
No.
Like these are actually his intangibles are going to become very tangible for this team when the time comes.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think on top of that, it's you kind of want your prospects to have those intangibles to.
Out the gate, yeah, because you can't teach that.
I was going to say that, yeah. A lot of them don't. You can't really develop that type of stuff, like whatever
Right,
heart is measured by or hustle,
right,
just in terms of your mentality. That just a fearless mentality on the court. Like you can't teach these things. Like it's not going to show up in the box score. You'll never realize that unless like you have witnessed or like watched the player, in their demeanor, how they handle different situations. But
yeah,
yeah, I think his skill is just going to continue to develop. Because, like I said, the glaring thing right now is the outside shooting, but his jumper's not broken. He just needs to
yeah,
work on consistently making NBA threes and just making quick, decisive moves toward the basket instead of just waiting or not trusting your shot. But
Right.
yeah, he'll
Yeah.
he'll, he'll
So,
be fine though. I think he'll be fine. Like I said, he's gonna contribute this year at some point.
oh, definitely. Yeah, I have no worries at all. If anything, I'm just more convinced and more reassured that he'll be fine throughout, from draft day until now. Um, but yeah, in terms of the rest of the team, I guess how are you feeling? There's a lot of talk about DeRozan, right, and his fit and like his
Right.
contract. I heard a lot of talk about like who are the Bulls bidding against? They overpaid. I'll just say really quickly, I personally was just like the people who are talking about this deal must not know what it's like to be a Bulls fan of the
Right.
last decade, especially like post D Rose and Jimmy Butler era. Like it's been rough, man. So it's just like I'll take DeMar for that contract, right? Like I'll at this point, like I feel like he's not chopped liver, right? He's not the end of his career. Like he can
No,
definitely
it
still
was
contribute. He went under the radar in San Antonio.
exactly. It was great there.
Um,
I thought.
yeah. So, but yeah, how did you feel? I guess when Demar got signed on the heels of Lonzo Ball and Caruso, and then just in response to hearing everybody else kind of throw water on the fire of it.
Yeah, well, you know me. I was a little, I was a little blinded by the fact that it's two Trojans, two Bruins.
Right.
That was the first thing
Booch.
I was looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to the contract stuff until after that. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I saw there were some like concerns, but I'm like, man, like money's getting thrown around in a lot of different ways by a lot of different players. Like,
Who are we
Duncan,
supposed to pay? Like,
everybody's getting the bag now. Duncan Robinson just got Norman Powell a lot of
right.
where DeRozan's capabilities. I think the discussion is just, is he worth that technically at this point in his career, which he is. I thought he played well in San Antonio last year. He played in a situation where you were kind of alluding to it earlier. They're kind of just out there in a way, like, they're fighting for play-in, but they have no chance at winning a title. You
No.
know, it's not like he treated as such. He came out there and he did his thing, helped the
Yeah.
guys, DeJounte Murray, a lot of those guys develop in a way.
Right.
Um, he averaged a career high in assists, which I think is going to be a big thing on this team. He's going to fit in that way. I think the only problem with the Bulls this year, or maybe that, I wouldn't say DeRozan spot, but he's going to have to play a lot of four like he did in San Antonio, where I think that's going to work in a lot of matchups. But we got the reigning champs in our division. We got Giannis. We even saw with
True.
how we put Javante Green on Mobley, Markkinen. It's
You're
you
right.
don't want DeRozan to guard certain fours. Like, we play the
Not
Lakers,
at all.
guard AD in certain lineups. Like, is Pat gonna have to be in the whole time type of thing? So it's just, I think defensively up front, we're gonna have to figure out and be creative. But
Yeah.
that's what he was right. Like, it's just basketball. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the DeRozan signing too, like you said, since we don't get that many big names in free agency, whether sign or trade, that just shows that okay, well, if I'm a free agent next year and they can afford it, I'm gonna look at the Bulls. They have all these recognizable guys now. Like DeRozan's a guy that's respected in the league too. Like you can't, you have to take that into account, like how people make decisions with where they want to play and where they want to, what team situation they want to be in. So he's gonna help us get a lot of players. I feel like
No, that's actually a really great point. It's something I thought about over the summer too, but it's just like we're actually building something here where it's like in
exactly.
the future, it actually looks like a good landing spot for people. Like even if you just hear Lonzo talk about how excited he is to be here, the cohesion between him and Zach LaVine, right? Like him kind of recruiting him. So there's like a camaraderie being built, and it's like players notice that. So it's like who knows in subsequent seasons who we can get. So let's just say the Bulls are playing chess here, right? Like even let's say secretly they're like, yeah, DeMar may not be worth this money at this point, even though I don't think that's the case. I
Yeah.
think they're probably happy with the move, but like for all intents and purposes, they could be just setting themselves up to add additional pieces, like you just said.
Definitely, yeah. And I think
And
it's you have to, like you said, they are playing chess, and you have to think of all these faces because I think DeRozan is going to help these guys out, and they're going to help each other. It's going to be mutually beneficial, just because he's going to rub off a lot on Levine and Lonzo. I think in particular, he already knows Vooch from USC.
right,
Even though they only
long
played
time,
like
yeah,
1 year, so you have that built-in chemistry. That's another big thing. You see how these teams you saw Phoenix last year. They added Chris Paul. It wasn't just Chris Paul that was added to that roster. Monty Williams was able to develop that chemistry because those young guys were there.
Yep.
Bridges, that was like year 4, I think. Cam Johnson, same, like second year. Book was there. Aiden had been there for a couple. It's a young team like building together now. I think the Bulls with DeRozan, he'll be that bridge from like we just got Vooch. Zach's been here, but Lonzo, they got the LA connection. There's a lot of connections in the team now where it's
Right.
it's a random roster. You have to mesh the chemistry or built that. I think the chemistry's built in. Lonzo and Caruso played together with the Lakers. There's a lot of
Oh, they
pieces.
sure did. Yeah.
Man, oh yeah. Me and Reggie, we saw them in Summer League. We saw Kuzma and Lonzo Caruso on that team. Alex and Matt Thomas too, who we just two way.
Oh, Matt Thomas. Yeah. Yeah.
Too. So
Yeah.
that they had a whip that year, yeah.
Yeah.
They're crazy. But yeah, like even him, he knows Caruso from Lonzo back in the day. So there's so many connections on that team now. Two Chicago guys, Dotson and
Right.
Ayuk.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think the
No.
team makes sense too. Not only the roster pieces, I think it makes sense.
Right. No, definitely. And I also think they're establishing identity better, right? Like Billy
Yeah.
Donovan has come out and challenged this team this year defensively, right? He's like, we clearly have a lot more offense than we've had in subsequent years, but it's just like, or in previous years, I should say. I'm sorry. But in terms of our identity, it's like we want to win, we got to defend. It's like look at all these championship teams, like they're all good defensively.
Right.
Um, and so we'll get to preseason in a bit, but you see that kind of identity shift in the preseason where they're just getting after it.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you mentioned Caruso, right, you made me think of the fact of him. Obviously, that's one of his main contributions to teams, right? His defensive acumen, his IQ on that side of the ball. Um, but one thing that stood out to me was recently they asked Zach what he thought of Caruso, and he talked
Right.
about how vocal he is and how much he likes that. And it made me think, just like playing pickup, it's like you actually do really enjoy that very vocal defensive guy who's just out here, getting into people, making noise, calling out picks and screens and whatnot.
Right. And
Um,
when was the last time the Bulls had that too? You know what I mean? Like
right.
you're gonna have that for multiple.
Joakim?
Yeah, yeah. Because even Jimmy, to an extent, like that's
Right.
not.
Obviously Jimmy, but
He'll lead more example on defense. Like it's more unspoken where you better be here or this in position, but it wasn't really that quarterback, like you said, the defense. And Caruso, obviously has a championship experience, and I think he more like him in the league. Obviously, has more of a defensive minded player anyway, so he always just has that as his base. His
right.
offense has gotten a lot better, but his
A
defense,
lot better, yeah.
Lonzo, just with the disruption with normal passes, like it's one thing when you're like a long 6'7", 6'9" guy, like you're able to get in passing lanes, and you know, for instance, Toronto, they just got Scotty Barnes. Like you see, they play him. He'll just have his arms up, OG, have like
Yep.
that long wingspan. It's another thing when you have anticipation, foot speed, athleticism, like Alonzo and a Caruso, where you can like shoot the gap a lot of times, and you're not going to be out of position. Get deflection, start the break. We have two guys who can do that. Like still
Yeah.
the break started instantly, just gone.
Yeah.
Lob pass and make the either breakout pass or make it or pass it all the way for a score. So
Right.
it's just the way we're able to play with pace now. I think is going to be just
Right.
perfect for this young group. Honestly, we saw with like the first game against the Cavs. With Zach catching oops. Last time we saw guard to guard oop with Zach. Have we haven't had the connection really. Who's our lob passer the last couple of years? Like we don't haven't really had that like that. You know,
Yeah, no, no, for real, and I feel like once again that's part of kind of Donovan's approach to this season, right? So the first tenet was that defensive end, but then also pace, right? Which you just alluded to. They clearly in preseason play with a lot more pace. Having a guard like Lonzo who's constantly with his head up, just sprinting down, the court, ready to make that first open pass, that makes a huge difference. Um, but also, it's like in terms of the front court, Donovan's just kind of like, yeah, we're gonna play some wings at the 4 and the 5, right? But then that starts to change the identity of the team because it's like, well, now the team, you have to be more active, more athletic, There has to be more communication because you can't
Right.
just rely on dudes being super tall and strong.
Or
Like,
being able to just guard one on one, or like
right, just straight
assuming that,
body.
yeah, that they'll be able to just check everybody one on one. Has to be like multiple defenders on each person. But like you said, that makes the entire defense more active. So yeah,
Yeah, because you have to. Yeah. So I think that was all great. Like it clearly stuck with them during training camp because leading into that first preseason game that you talked about with the Cavs, like I don't know if you can have a better first preseason game with that kind of offseason. Like
I
I don't know
know.
about you. I was just watching that game smiling. I was
I,
just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like this can't be the Bulls right
I know, man. I'm like,
now.
not only are the pieces different, like the actual players, but like you said, it's just the strategy, the pace of play. Like, we're playing like a modern NBA team. We're hitting threes. Or
Right.
we were doing that before, but it just wasn't to an extent where you thought it was could be sustainable or conducive to winning because we weren't playing defense or we weren't doing X, Y, Z to go along with those things. Because you can
Yeah.
shoot a lot of threes, stay in games, stuff like that, but come on, unless you're a real shooting team, like a sniping team, like you're gonna shoot yourself out of games because you can't get over the hump with that other stuff. And adding a DeRozan, there's like adding a separation. We're like, okay, we might be able to get stops at the end of the games, or we have a closer that can close out games after we get a stop, or push the lead to 4 and then get a stop. And then there's a lot of ways to close out games. And I think that's going to help us too.
Yeah.
Having an identity, like you said, like maybe we're not a defensive minded team per se, but we can play both ways where we're active on defense, but then that leads to us playing a fast pace on offense because we can run people to death. I feel like we got
Yeah.
crazy athletes on the team now.
Well, and so speaking to that first game, it's like Javante Green. Where did that come from?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that man, that man was playing like I'm getting some minutes one kind of way, right? Like this is clearly a deep team at this point, a relatively deep team. Javante, he took perfect advantage of the minutes he got in that first preseason game.
yeah. What were you most impressed by? 'Cause I feel like, I mean, obviously starting at power forward is just one thing. That's checking Evan Mobley,
Right.
getting those blocks on. Man, I know like how great of an athlete he is, but I think it's the other stuff. Like you said, it's that mentality where he was playing a little bit just like in that spark plug role where they were, they were still trying to fight for a last play-in spot where they didn't know who to kind of throw in after Zach got hurt and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
he shows that he can come in and even if he's a utility guy at first, he can come in and impact on either defense or, like I said, on the break. Like he was making some nice cuts. Like he has a lot of ways to score like off the ball. I feel like, and that energy is going to help us. And for that guy to be your utility guy or a guy who might not play a lot is, man, you can throw him already. We can see from 2 to 4, he can play multiple positions. So
Yeah. I think I was most impressed by just the fact that he was splashing jump shots,
yeah,
right?
he was.
Like he wasn't just like toilet bowling it in or rim in rim out backboard situation. Like he was splashing these shots and like the hustle was matching. You could tell the momentum he was getting from like hitting these shots was feeding back into his defense and vice versa. Yeah, he was just impressive all the way around. And like you said, from that utility role, it's one of those things where it's just like based on whatever the flow of that current game is, whenever we play him, you actually kind of can see where you can trust him now to just fill in whatever we need for that game.
Yeah, and it's it kind of just got me thinking about just now. Really, it's really weird how I think not weird, but it's gonna really help the Bulls how they have legitimately 4 guys who have played that quote unquote utility role before. You have Javante Green,
Hmm.
Eric Jones Jr. has for sure done this in the past.
Mm,
Like he'll come in or
hmm.
spark plug will bring him in for like defensive possessions. Caruso, obviously, he's done that to begin his career. He did that a lot with the Lakers before, full time rotation guy. And then Troy Brown kind of did it last year with us, where he would come
Right.
in and play 2-3 and then check 2-3 and slash all that kind of stuff. They have guys, Alzay Johnson too, to an extent. He's been more like kind of finding his footing in the league, but the fact that he can come in for those energy minutes and be productive in that time is, I think the fact these guys they have all these role player tendencies now. You know what I mean? Like they're building a base in terms of okay, if I don't play consistently every night, which most of them will anyway, I can still come in and impact. Because I've had this role before where I've had inconsistent minutes, or I come in for 15 instead of 25. I can come in and still take advantage of my time. So
Right.
we got a lot of guys like that can just interchangeable. I feel like.
No, definitely. And so yeah, I was just thinking like based on how this team is made up, and then just watching them throughout the preseason, just kind of figuring out like how the roles are playing out. And so one player in particular we talked about him earlier is DeRozan, right? Because
Mm.
obviously, people as soon as you hear DeRozan, you're gonna hear mid range, right? That's usually
Right.
the first thing people bring up. You
Yep.
might hear something about lack of threes. You might hear something about, his passing ability and things of that nature. But I was just trying to figure out like when is he gonna pick his spots to kind of do his let me break you down and like there's definitely moments I feel like throughout the 4 preseason games where it's just like, okay, that probably wasn't the best shot. But at the same time, every time he did that, I was okay with it. I was just like, because he carries a certain star power where it's just like, you got to keep the defense honest, right? So it's like,
Exactly.
let's give DeRozan the ball. Let's let him cook for a little bit. If he misses it, fine. Because you just kind of feel like you can trust him in those big moments, to get you a bucket, which is what we really need at the end of the day, right? Like
Yeah.
last year, it was painful to watch Zach try and break down all 5 guys on the opposite team, and he couldn't really reliably look at somebody to his left or his right to get him a bucket too.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because like I said, kind of going back to that closer role that we needed. Not to say Zach's not a closer, but if they're keying in on you, you're going to take the shot. How
Exactly.
expect me to be consistently? It's just
Exactly.
that's why I hate like that type of narrative. Okay, well, young teams do have to find a way to win games, obviously, but you can't surround a young team with other young players entirely. You need to have a vet or somebody who can take the pressure off, really. And they did that with acquiring Vooch, but DeRozan's going to open up another avenue because he can isolate and score. Vooch
Exactly.
score, face and score, and obviously off a screen and roll. But you have that option now where you can bring Vooch in the play if you want. You can have Zach just there if the defense converges, taking shots. Same with Lonzo. So yeah, I just think there's way more options to go to late. It's not just Zach having to make a spectacular shot anymore. I feel like
Right. And like there's plenty of games last season where it was just that, right? It came down to the wire and then Zach has to take some like long range pull up 2 step back or like a step back 3. And then when he misses, it's like you can't even be that mad because like what else were we gonna do? Like
and Zach, he's a losing player. He can't close out games. He's not clutch. All this.
it's like, yo, do you see this? And it's like no knock to the rest of those guys, but it's just like this team wasn't built for that.
You're
Like,
also talking about year two Kobe White. You're talking about young guys.
right.
So like we see just how good young players are, and it's just varying degrees. Like I hate like how somebody will compare one 19-year-old to the other like they're the same person. Like everybody develops at a different rate, and you have to give them time to go through these growing pains. But if you're serious about winning NBA basketball consistently, you need veterans around that talent because you can't win with all young guys like that. I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah.
The Hawks did it, but what did they do? How bad were the Hawks last year before they got Gallinari, acquired Lou Williams, got Bogdanovich from second? They were awful. They
That
got better,
exactly.
they got better, a lot better, instantly. Stars. Trey Young, a star. John Collins, borderline, if you don't want to call him that.
Right.
Other surrounding talent, DeAndre Hunter, emerging star, Cam Reddish, getting better. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to merge it. It can't be all one or the other.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Unless
Yeah, if you
you can
if
get
you go to either end of the spectrum too extreme, yeah, it just doesn't work.
right.
No, definitely.
Um, let's see. Do you want to go into preseason? I mean, I guess we can cut some stuff. Do you want to go into preseason or after this?
Yeah, I mean, we I feel like we touched on the first game, right? So
Well, Cleveland.
definitely there's a lot of high octane energy. The Bulls, routed the Cavs. It wasn't really much of a contest. I mean, I feel like it was fun if you're a Bulls fan,
Yeah,
for watching that. Just a lot of alley oops, highlights.
man, I was way too excited for that. I mean, I was way more excited than I probably should have been. But like you said, Man, when have we ever played like this?
No, no, exactly. And then there's like that healthy balance of it's preseason, right? It's the first preseason game, and it's the Cavs. Um,
131 points though is like, you know, that's
there was a
16 threes.
right. There's a little bit extra because Markkanen, right? So obviously we had just recently kind of traded him. So there's that little bit of element to that as well. It was a little weird seeing Markkanen in that Cavs jersey, and I don't know. It's still new. It's going to take me a little bit of time. To be honest, so connecting back to when I asked you earlier, is there any players from that era? Honestly, I'm pretty sad that the Markkanen thing didn't work out because when we got him in that Butler trade, it really felt like this was a foundational piece. Like even take someone like Carter, right? It's
Right.
like I honestly expected Carter to be here for beyond his first contract. I really did. Um, but that one is like I don't know. I was it was easier for me to let that one go. But Markkanen, I thought he would. You always felt like he was going to come around in terms of like finding that consistency to his game and like stringing it together.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think also, even though Markin was on here, I think maybe a year longer than Wendell. Wendell, he's going to a situation where like, I wasn't even disappointed they trade him because obviously we got Vooch and we got like a established
Yeah,
all-star, but you're start like he's in a position where he can still develop and start and play great minutes on that team, even though they're going to be terrible. It's like he can still, if he had a ceiling with the Bulls, for instance, he has better prospects there just because his numbers are going to be a little bit better initially. So
for
he,
sure.
instead of being like, 12 and 10, potentially be like 16, 17, 18, possibly, and score more points. And then his stock will just go up. So I was more happy for him than anything. Honestly, I thought it was just a weird situation with him being hurt all the time here.
Right.
Gaffney breathing down his neck a little bit. So I thought it was great for both parties. Markkinen, like you said, was kind of like that kicker in the trade where this is you get Zach, but you get Markkinen too. So it's a
and
better
and and
sell.
look how that's shaken out, right? Because now Zach is just a bona fide all star,
And Jimmy
and
doesn't play for them off of like what three teams removed. So
right, and right, Jimmy's obviously still a bona fide stud, but like he's entering that twilight of his career, and it's like, but it feels like Zach's career is just ascending, right?
that's a
Like,
tremendous L for them, just because they essentially chose between Zach and Wiggins on that too. Where like
mm,
the Bulls probably would have taken Wiggins if they were like, oh, okay,
right, at that point in time, yeah,
they could have just kept Zach and didn't have to trade him. They were just so aggressive in getting Jimmy Butler because Tibbs was there. So they,
because Tibbs was there,
but
yeah.
a couple years later, he wasn't there. So
But maybe part of that also was the ACL, right? Because it's just like I
right.
don't even know if you could confident like who back then could be like, oh, Zach is going to be capable of being more athletic than he was before. Like I really feel like that was a hard thing to call back then.
Yeah, there are definitely some doubts. I remember.
Yeah, we just kind of lucked out
We did for
with that part at least. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think what helped too was that kind of down year. He wasn't forced back into anything. Also, so
right,
you come back on a year that doesn't matter. Basically, you just get your footing, and then that next year he was even better, just because he had that. He wasn't coming into anything, completely, with no experience on a new team. So
right. Yeah, so first preseason game was a blowout. The
it,
next the next two, let's just lump those together. So those were wins as well. Um, but how did you so the third one was the Cavs again. Who was the second one?
Pelicans, yeah,
Pelicans. So no Zion, obviously.
and the last one
Um,
was Memphis, yeah.
with Memphis, yeah. So I want to save the Memphis one because that was a to me that was a different game than the first three.
Oh, it was.
Um, but the second and third games, anything stand out from those games for you, or was it did they just kind of bleed together as just strong showings?
I think they bled together a little bit, but to your point about DeRozan earlier, that second Cleveland game was way more aggressive. I think
Yeah, yeah,
he had team high in that. We kind of saw like what the role players can do and how deep the Bulls were too in that one, where Iowa was making those plays late, but Derek Jones got double figures. Alize Johnson at 14-11. I think you and that one just stood out where we are deep. We're deeper than I wouldn't say thought, but we have guys like I said, a lot of those guys where they might not play consistent minutes every night. Like Alize Johnson, depending on matchup, might come in over Tony Bradley, but
which he should in certain scenarios. Yeah,
completely agree. But I think these games were good for confidence boosters for, like I said, not only Io making those plays late, but DeRozan
right.
taking over when he needs to, and then Alize Johnson, these guys are coming in and I can contribute and playing these types of matchups and make a difference. But
Yeah, I mean, the more we talk about it, I just realize how many like there's so many bright spots that happened in the preseason. Because I'll just name a few, but what you just mentioned with DeRozan, right? Like his aggressiveness, that is something I've noticed where that first game it seemed like he was definitely trying to defer in the sense of like, this is kind of Zach's team. I'm one of the new guys here. He was
right,
picking his spots a lot more. Second game, way more aggressive. But at the same time, still not like trying to dominate the ball by any means, right? He would help that second unit kind of control the pace and get guys set up, take shots when necessary.
yeah,
Um, but then even just like Alize Johnson's contributions, right? It highlighted the fact that like, yeah, there might be some games where it makes more sense to play him over Bradley, right? Like
yeah.
and Bradley, his first showing was in that fourth preseason game, but
Hmm.
you can kind of see this is going to be more of a matchup sort of situational deal.
Yeah, man. Hey, according to 2K, it is. I have a season with them. And it's like some games Alize Johnson, some games Bradley. Like if I play the Lakers, I might have to put out Bradley.
Right, Bradley. Yeah, that's where you need that tall, old school kind of matchup. But
Right, right.
yeah, when you're trying
Uh,
to play athletic and run, yeah, Alize.
back to the second game, the Pelicans game. Forgot to mention Lonzo was incredible. Like
Oh
he,
yeah, yeah. So,
whew,
man, I feel like the reason why we're all over the place. There's just so many different ways you can go with that. Like even when you just bringing up Lonzo, it's like, what do you want to talk about? His offense or his defense? Because he was great on both sides. Like
yeah, and like I said, I just love guards that push the break too. I mean, you turn the points or you turn turnovers into points. Like you get steals, and I just love that. Like in guards, like a lot of them, that's more like an old school mentality where you would get the ball and push. Like some guards just have that pace. That's why I like the Ball brothers because that's been ingrained where like they're playing with a certain flow. They're just advancing. The ball is always advanced. They're trying to advance the ball as quickly as possible and as deliberately as possible down the court. Like they're not
yeah,
doing any of that. Like they're looking to advance the ball, especially off that initial rebound, that initial steal or whatever. Like I just love the way Lonzo is just seamlessly does that. He can play off ball, hit threes. His
yeah.
shots
You
got
know,
better.
It's funny. You definitely do like that style of play because I have a very distinct memory of whenever I'm watching a Bulls game with you, you're always yelling for them to go. As
Yeah,
soon as they get that rebound, you're just like, go, go. like and so that's exactly how Lonzo plays. Like that's the good part with this.
yeah. No, he's not shy about that either. Like that's like a confidence you need to have where like you're not afraid to make turnovers in the open court. It's not like he makes silly turnovers anyway, but for you to play that way and then not throw the ball all over the place is a big deal because a lot of players they're not able to, or their coach like kind of tell them to curb that a little because you're throwing the ball over the place. So
Right.
the fact that he's able to play under control that way, and Caruso similar style. They're really similar players actually. It's really weird like how
Yeah, no, I know what you mean though. Yeah, you wouldn't think that just, on paper, but no, they actually have similar kind of
same instinct.
instincts and methodology to the game.
Yeah. They're, like similar approach, and I think they complement. I want to see more lines with them together, Caruso and Lonzo.
Yeah,
Like I said, that built-in chemistry is already there from those early Laker days. So
right.
yeah, they need some lineups where it's them two, maybe Zach too, like running. Like I don't know, they have the lineup to do that. Derek Jones, just throw all athletes out there.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, it's a very athletic league at this point, so we're on the right side of history with that.
What'd you think of? I don't know if you noticed in that last game against the Grizzlies, they experimented. I want to say maybe it was real, really short, like maybe 2 3 minute stretch. They had Pat at the 5. Do you remember that? He
I
played
do.
for
Yeah,
like I think it was after Bradley had come in for a stretch. They didn't put Alize Johnson in the first half, I'm thinking. Pat got those a second stint. It was short because Vooch had to come back in basically right after that. But
because yeah, Adams came.
right, no, I was like, it's gonna work out. But what do you think of that? Just like in general, you think you can get away with some minutes, Pat the 5? Or?
You know what the biggest takeaway I had from that experiment was the fact that we had the gall to do the experiment. So the
Gotcha.
fact that Billy Donovan was like, "Yeah, let's put Pat at the 5," just lets me know we're in a very different era of this team and like play styles and adapting to the modern NBA, right? Like those are the kind of things whether it works or not, whether it's a long term effective plan or whatever. It's early, right? So I'm not really tripping off none of that. My thing is just like the fact that you're trying to experiment and mix it up and like, you know, get to I guess just compete with these different teams with all these other lineups. I just love that part of it.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of ways to mix and match. I think that's gonna just help us out a lot. Where it did seem kind of limited in previous years, where
Right. It just
like either we have guys who can only play one spot, or you don't want to put them. You remember that? Obviously, you're trying to play marking out small forward, just trying to try stuff for the sake of doing it. But no, there's a lot of pieces who actually are able to go in different spots. We're like, okay, this isn't a traditional point or a traditional wing. Can play multiple spots.
right, but that's actually a good point it's like the marking and playing small forward thing always felt weird to me. I don't know about you, but it's just like it almost didn't feel like we were really gaining an advantage there. But
No,
with this kind of experiment, it's like this is more of what we should be trying to do. It's like putting a 7 footer or 6'11", whatever you want to call him in terms of his height. Putting someone of that height at small forward who's already not known as a defender,
right.
it's just like I guess, but this isn't the move.
Nah, not not at
Yeah.
all. Hey, the Cavs did it too. It's like they put I think
No, right.
Mobley and
but
Allen like jumbo lineup. What the fuck?
yeah, but that one is like more of like, is it just because they just have too many big dudes, right?
I
It's like
think so. Yeah,
Allen. It's like we got to find some minutes we just traded for this guy, so
right.
yeah, that one I don't know. Even that one makes more sense to me than how the Bulls tried to do that with Markkinen, but.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Just seeing the minutes distribution in the first few games.
Mhm.
Because it's man, you gotta look up one game. Oh, did Derek Jones not play or get in yet,
You
or
were right.
did this guy or Javante not play many minutes? Or I think it's gonna be like that for, like I said, maybe those first couple of weeks, or even where
Yeah,
rotations are established. Because I want to say the last preseason game, first two off the bench, Troy Brown Jr. and then Javante, but Caruso came in right after that. So
right.
that seems like the first three off the bench going forward, but I don't know. Yeah, let's see. Let's talk about the rotation actually going for that first game of the season because we got the Pistons in Detroit.
Yep.
Um, what are your expectations for what the rotation is going to look like? Because obviously preseason you can't really get a full gauge of that. We were playing guys similar minutes, but I think even Pat only played 22 coming off the injury. Zach might have been around 30, but who do you expect to come off the bench and kind of contribute that first game?
I definitely feel like Caruso is gonna play a big role with that. Trying to think who else. I think Javante is probably going to get an early look as well. Um, Obviously, with Pat coming back, that's great for him to kind of fortify that starting lineup again. But yeah, I think the first two that come to mind is Caruso and Javante Green. Um, just from that energy and just defensive minded standpoint, it'll be interesting because I feel like kind of like football, like the flow of the game is going to dictate our rotations, and it's just
Right.
like, is Cade playing for sure, or is he questionable for this
That's
first?
let me check really quickly.
Yeah, because I feel like whether he plays or not, I have a feeling that the Bulls are gonna uh, just kind of dominate this game. I don't know. Maybe that's just optimism from how the preseason went. But if he doesn't play, I could see there being a scenario where the bench gets very deep in terms of who plays because it might just be out of hand by the time you get to like mid to late third quarter. So
Okay, yeah, it looks like he has been limited over the past few weeks, participating in some shooting drills today. Dwayne Casey was like, he's on course. He's working. We're on the same page with his people and with Cade. We're gonna wait, basically. So I hold on. One thing we're not gonna do if he's not 100%, we're not gonna rush
is
back.
rush him. Yeah, I
But
think I saw that too.
yeah, we'll see everybody is by Monday and make that proclamation. Sounds like game time decision. Seems like leaning towards he might be out. I will say, he is a wild card that first game. I think if he does play, the game just gets that much more interesting. Just not only because he's obviously just a very good basketball player, number one pick,
Right,
but
number one pick. Yeah,
the fact that he played no preseason
right.
might play like obviously opening night home court. It could energy wise pick them up even more so. I feel like so we
That's
should
true.
be aware of that if he does play.
That's true. Um, but yeah, I mean, just in terms of that game, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. Like, I feel like the rotations are really just going to reflect the flow of the game, and that's kind of connected to our point just now about the rest of the season, right? Like, there's just going to be some of those nights where certain guys are going to play more, which isn't really something you necessarily saw with the Bulls of the past. It was just like, this is kind of our guys, and we're going to stick to this game plan. And there wasn't a ton of adjustments, but it just seems like we're set up more than ever to make adjustments, which is huge in pro sports. So,
Exactly, yeah. Okay, let's to that point. Let's get into a little bit of the matchups. That first game, obviously we got Jeremy Grant. Pat's gonna be on him at the two. Who are the Pistons? Man, I do not know their rotation right now. They've been going in and out with like Killian Hayes and like Diallo and Magruder. I don't know who they're gonna start the two.
right.
I'll give that matchup to Zach. Look that up. Um, at the point, obviously you have Alonzo and then either Cade or Hayes or who else is there? Corey Joseph, maybe. I'm not even sure who they're starting at the one right now, but I think the guy obviously to key in on is Jeremy Grant, but another guy to look out for, Isaiah Stewart, and that's gonna be our first game. Obviously, his first game of his sophomore year.
Yeah.
He played great towards the end of last year. He had a nice little preseason. They're banking on him to really carry them. I think Kelly Olynyk, they just got him, so he's going to be another guy to watch out for in terms of like points. And you don't want to give him a big game because Olynyk ends up with 21, Grant gets 20 something. You got yourself in the ball game now. But otherwise, if you don't let other guys get off, it's not as like damning for you to
right.
kind of blow them out. But yeah, I think the guy I'm looking at right, yeah, like I said, Isaiah Stewart, I think, and then Sadiq Bey too. He can just catch fire from three. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking at this roster right now. It looks a little rough, but you never know, right? It's still the NBA. There's pro guys on every team. Like, catch somebody on the right night, and they could have career nights, which we've seen happen plenty of times against the Bulls.
especially home court first game of the season for sure.
Right.
Josh
And like you,
too. I felt I didn't mention him, but another guy that had
yeah.
decent preseason.
Yeah, but to that point, you also brought up a few days ago when we were talking about just their opening schedule in general, right? Like, it's kind of soft in the sense of like
Very.
potentially allowing the Bulls to build some early momentum.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You got to take advantage of these games. That's going to separate you. I mean, we see how those games that the Bulls dropped, the close ones early in the year last year, just came back to bite them in the ass at the end.
Right.
Zach unfortunately went down with COVID and whatnot, so you couldn't really make up those margins where okay, if a team did lose, we win or like automatically going to take this game because without him, it was just unpredictable. Either they win or probably get killed. But it's just a little different when obviously your stars out. But you have to
Right.
take care of these early games. These games, like I said, especially if you look out on the schedule, where looking back, okay, this is the Pistons. They didn't have Cade. What if Cade just is the best rookie this year? Okay, we played them without him. We should win this game, basically. If he's that good, then obviously we should just win this on the strength that they don't have them. So it's just stuff like that where, for instance, the next game, no Zion for the Pelicans. You can't drop those games even though it's the
No.
season.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like that's no shade to these other teams, but it's just like even that Pelicans game, it's like that's in my opinion, that's a must win game. Like you just gotta go grab that. Especially it's the first
It's
home
there.
game. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You got
Yeah.
to take advantage of the situations, like you said. I mean, you that's the beauty of winning basketball too, because these games are just assumed. Where
Yeah.
that's when they were on that crazy streak last year. They're not gonna have a team come in on their home court and beat them under any circumstance. Really, you have
Right.
to be an elite team to not only hang with us in this game. Like we're probably just gonna. They had a lot of times where they would do, which I hope the Bulls can turn to this team. The game might be close in the first half, and that third quarter they just bust them. Like it's you just you can't keep up with that pace after a while. And the good teams can turn it on, or they can separate themselves after a certain point in the game. Like they can obviously ramp up whatever they need to do defensively, or like I said, turn turnovers into points or whatever they need to do to put the game in their favor. But yeah, we all that all that said, you can't drop these games. You can't.
Not at all. Shifting gears real quick. In terms of rotations and kind of our guards and whatnot. How do you feel about Kobe White and his insertion back into the lineup whenever he's off of recovery from his shoulder surgery? Because I'll say for me, one thing was throughout this whole entire offseason, that you heard all this excitement about all the other players we were getting and like how excited we were to have our point guard of the future and like all these different things. And a small corner of the back of my mind, I was just like, man, how would I feel if I was Kobe White right now? Like his name did not get mentioned all off season. But what I will say is kind of, reading, the Bulls news and features and things like that, it sounds like him and Billy Donovan had some conversations about like him still having a role on this team and like White kind of buying in and trusting that and saying, whenever I'm back, I'm just ready to contribute however I can. And so to me, it kind of seems like that'll lead Kobe White to being back to, his natural talent, which is just scoring. Like
Right.
he can come in and kind of play that Ben Gordon role where it's just like, and
Yeah.
obviously Ben started, but just like that kind of player where when Ben Gordon was on the Bulls, we weren't looking for him to pass, right? Like when Ben Gordon had the ball, it was like get us a bucket. So I guess from your opinion, how do you feel about this offseason as it relates to just like Kobe White not being talked about at all? But then how do you see his reinsertion into this team after X amount of time?
I think it was kind of perfect that he wasn't, the topic of discussion though, just because once again it kind of showed how aggressive they were in getting these other like great players. But not only that, you forget that he's on the team and you remember his talent and what he can actually do. Like you said, if he is playing off ball like with that sort of Ben Gordon role, where it's exclusively scoring or coming off the bench, and like I said, the only thing with guys like, or not guys like Kobe White, but anybody on this team, which like I said, those more utility guys are used to it. You just have to be accepting your role's not going to be enormous every night because you have to play Lonzo 30. You have to play Zach
Right.
over 32, 34, 36 minutes. There's not going to be a ton of time between Alex Caruso and uh, a lot of other guys coming off the bench. So I think with Kobe White, the Bulls are really going to need backcourt scoring off the bench at the end of the day. Caruso will get at least anywhere from, I would say, 8 to 14. You can just count on that. But aside
Yep.
from that, it's going to be a combination of a Troy Brown, Javante, Derrick Jones that are going to combine for X amount of points off the bench. So if Kobe White can come in and give you that consistent 14 or whatever it is that he'll average, that just makes their standing a lot better. Just, you can count on that production because the Bulls, they on paper, they don't have a strong bench in terms of offensive production. They do in terms of defensive activity and versatility, but offensive production, you don't look at them and say, okay, they're going to put up points when the starters rest. Like they're going to put up a ton of points at least. So he
Right.
needs to come in and be that instant offense guy. But man, he can do it, man. You saw what he did the first couple of years. He's just a high volume 3-point guy at the end of the day. If
Yeah.
roll, catch and shoot, have him shoot like 7 threes a game. He'll be fine, honestly. And then he can still obviously go to the basket. So
It's funny you just said having shoot 7 threes a game. It's just like for us growing up, that sounds
I
ridiculous. But
know,
that's today's game. Like that actually does that makes sense to me.
right?
But
Can you imagine if Ben Gordon was able to shoot like 12 games per
oh
game? Like he
man,
would. People don't realize he would have broken so many like just
seriously,
so many records because he was, I think, to me, the first guy where I saw, okay, not the first, but one of the ones where he was really using the three ball in ways where, like, remember that 9 for 9 game he didn't miss?
I do.
Now we got guys Steph hitting 9, 10 threes, random
Easy,
games.
yeah.
But I'm like, wow, this is like you're a real shooter scorer, but you can handle this volume and be accurate, and that's how all these guys are now. But you shoot that 15 or 12 times today, like you're making like 12 or 8 of them. So I think he could have
Man,
easily been that type of player. And Kobe White can be that guy where, like I said, at the end of the day, he can just spot up and shoot. All the attention from the other guys, Vooch, DeRozan, Zach, he'll be fine, I think.
I got some quick hitters for you. Do you think we'll have any All Stars on this team this year?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I think
Who's making it?
obviously Zach coming back for sure. That's already happened. But
Okay.
I think it's gonna be Vooch might take a slight hit with numbers. His rebounds will go up though, probably. But
Right. Well, so real quick on that, I thought the same thing. Like I could see Vooch taking a step back, but at the same time, if you look at this last game,
yeah,
it's like if his offense
it
is clicking, which he said it takes some time in the beginning of the season.
yeah.
There's gonna be so much pick and roll, pick and pop, like slip screen, like I feel like with the team he has now, he actually might be better.
He might. I think his numbers. He's a great numbers guy. Anyway, he's just very
Right.
productive. And man, he just scored. That's why I like him and Zach Evers as a baseline duo because they're just so easy. They're easy scorers. Like when it's like obviously somebody averaged X amount of points. Like how are they getting these points? Like is it tough? Like are they
Right.
outstretching, barely getting 20? Like no, he's like oh damn. he's basically he's basically getting these points without much trouble. That's the same thing that Zach does. Like he's not over.
Right.
We're like, okay, this is a hard 30. He's like outstretching and trying to. No, like Vooch scores very easily, and I think production wise, he'll be up there. I think Lonzo's a candidate too, honestly, because if the
Yeah.
Bulls win X amount of games, you are entitled a lot of times to multiple All Stars. So it's like, who are they going to pick? I think Zach and obviously Vooch are going to be the closest in terms of like numbers, but Lonzo might put some numbers this year. I don't know. What actually yeah, what do you think is if you had to predict his stat line or even just points per
Mm.
what do you
I'm
think?
terrible at stat line predictions. I'm gonna stay out of that one.
Oh,
But
man, come on.
I I definitely feel like well, let me pull up his numbers
How about
from
this? First game Pistons, how many points he scored?
you want to do over or under?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna say hmm just say 16.5.
Okay. Um hmm. I'm gonna go slightly under. I
Okay.
think like a solid 15 points
Mm.
with like at least 10 assists and like
Okay.
some steals. Like I feel like he's gonna stuff the stat sheet. Let me put it that way. I'm
Okay.
not necessarily looking. I think Lonzo's gonna get hot plenty of times throughout the season, but I feel like to start he's still gonna be kind of. I don't know. Unless he's hitting a bunch of threes, I feel like he's gonna be more of just setting guys up and just taking what the game kind of gives him. But what do you think? You think over? Or?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be around that though. I think, like you say, he's gonna look to facilitate a lot, and look for
Yeah.
to set up his teammates first, get them in a rhythm. But he might catch fire from three, which a lot of times, like he'll have like a few points, but then get a couple threes in a row, and then all of a sudden he's up to like at least
No,
13, 14.
exactly.
So yeah, I think game one, I 15 is a good guess. That's a good prediction.
Yeah, we'll see. Um, I mean, Zach, you just reminded me though with Zach, it's like the way the way he's scoring now, it just looks a lot easier, man. Like
Very, man.
last year, he worked hard to get to 30 points, but
Yeah,
it's like these preseason games. Like I know they're preseason, but it's just if you look at deeper into the box score, the way he got to the 30, like even this last game, he just waited for the team to kind of do their thing the first three quarters, and then he just like, all right, I got it, and then he just started killing. But he had the energy to do that because he wasn't trying to carry the team the other three quarters, you know?
right. Yeah, and that's gonna help him too. He doesn't have to feel like he has to do everything for the first 3 quarters, where he'll have the
Right,
energy even to go off like later on in the game. But when you feel like you have that burden to do everything all the time, where you have to score at least 30 to have your team in the game, it's a different mentality. But now you can just go out there and play without like, oh, I need to get this amount of points for even just us to be competitive. So yeah, man,
right.
I'm excited. I think it's gonna be such a fun year for him just in general because like I said, he has a coach coming back for the first. That's so underrated. Like, how do you have a different coach every year? That's
Every year, it's not easy. People underestimate that for sure.
a big deal. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun year for him because I think he's gonna play with a lot of players that he's enjoying and fit stylistically too.
Yep. Do the Bulls are they making the play in or the playoffs?
Oh, playoffs for sure, for sure. I'm calling it right now. I gotta call that shot. I
No, that one I don't have any problem making that declaration.
was about to
There's
say,
a
yeah, we got
no, there's a lot of no. I heard a lot of random talk, and maybe this talk was earlier. I feel like the people are starting to come around after watching the Bulls go undefeated in the playoffs, but it's just like
preseason,
right, but still, it's just like y'all really think the Bulls are going to be competing for the play-in spot? Like, do you see this team? Like,
yeah.
um,
There's still, like I said, I think some people, if you haven't watched all the games, you'll still question where they're, like I said, they're a little small in certain spots. So okay, we're gonna get enough rebounding. Can we defend consistently against the great teams? What does it look like when we're going up against a full roster, like playoff team caliber? I think
yeah,
there's still a lot of just decent teams in the East, but they don't know how they're gonna shake. You still got the Knicks coming back, who were 4 seed. The Hawks presumably got better, or at least the same. The Celtics. There's a lot of teams like in that mix. The Hornets, where you think they can either take a step up or they are just kind of jumbled together. But I don't know.
yeah,
I think for me, best case, and what I would best case, I want to see home court. I think that's attainable. I think
yeah.
it's gonna take something where how the quick turnaround type of thing, how with the Knicks and the Suns last year, but the pieces are there. They really are. They're just there. I feel like.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, no, the Bulls, they're definitely primed. If more than anything, just be way better than last year, which is like, as a Bulls fan, that's really all you can ask for. Because
Man,
it's just like last year, there's a lot of games that were truly hard to watch, and it's like no matter how big of a fan you were, it's just like, man, I don't feel like watching this basketball right now, this
yeah,
brand of basketball. But it's like even if the Bulls lose specific games this year, they're going to be entertaining to watch, regardless, because they're going to compete, they're going to defend, and they're going to leave it all out there. And bring it full circle, right? One of the guys we kind of talked about at the beginning of the podcast was Io, right? And it's like, let there be any sort of injuries or just any situation where the rotation gets lengthened. uh, Io clearly has showed he's ready to come in and just provide an energy spark. So it's like that there's still that intangible. He might catch somebody by surprise on certain nights. Like there's just a lot to look forward to with this team.
man. Yeah, I'm excited. I,
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the season. I mean, it's a couple
Yeah.
days away, but
Well, yeah. 3 days away, right? We're recording this late on Sunday. So first matchup with the
Detroit,
Pistons,
old
and
school
then
rivalry game.
old school rivalry.
Not so
Yeah.
much anymore.
And then Pelicans on Friday, Detroit again on Saturday,
At the last
and
couple of weeks, we have someone else on Sunday.
no game on Sunday. Toronto on Monday.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
and then New York. I'm actually very very interested
I
to
know.
see.
I'm waiting. I'm
Oh, that's Joakim Noah night.
this. It is.
Ah, perfect.
Man, I wish I was in the building for that. I would like to
Right,
be there. Dang,
right.
man. That's what a player.
Honestly, that's the game I'm looking forward to the most, to
Yeah,
start the season, because it's like the first few games are just kind of whatever. Like if there's no Zion, it's like I honestly don't care about that Pelicans game, just to keep it real.
I will. There's just two games that like I am really looking forward to from like I said, it's an early like test. Obviously the Nick game, the Raptors game too though, because I don't know if they're gonna be good this year. If they are, I think that's a good notch to beat them right now because
Oh, for sure.
they could be really just okay, but if they that's not team that play in implications or they down the line like they would want to be a team that's around the playoff spot, but those first three it's okay. What tier are we in a way? Like go off the 2K
Yeah,
rankings. Like what tier are we actually in? Are we beating the Zionless Pelicans and then the Cadeless Pistons or just the Pistons in general, and
right.
losing to like the Raptors or even the Knicks early? Or are we taking care of all of these teams? Or where are we
Yeah,
right now? Even though it's super early and it's not going to matter down the line as much, but where are we right now though? And can we win? Can we go 4-1? Can we even go 5-0? I think those should be the realistic expectations, and then just go from there. Just whatever result, take it, but try and get them all because it's possible.
yeah. No, but I think this team has a healthy amount of irrational confidence, where I think they actually will try and get them all. They're just like, why not?
Yeah.
So, and also to add with the Raptors games, like Siakam's not going to be back for a while, right? So it's like I
All
know they
right.
still got Scotty Burns, they still got OG, but like that they're not even at full strength. So it's like the first three teams we play are not at full strength, and
Right.
like, and I'm not just talking about like okay, because we have Kobe out as well, but it's just like
Yeah.
no, Siakam is a major part of that Toronto team. Like Zion is a major part of that team. Cade, that's the future of their franchise. Like it's
Exactly.
not.
Yeah.
So it's just like we actually are kind of playing a few wounded teams to start. I feel like New York to me that's that first real test, right? Kemba's there now. Like
Hmm.
I feel like there's a kind of a budding rivalry building with New York because we're kind of ascending at the same time in terms of like both teams being bad for a few years. And then
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
yeah, New York took a bigger step last year, right, than the Bulls, but it's like now the Bulls countered like with a better team this year. So I feel like low key that's going to be a really electric kind of game, that New York game.
Yeah. Hey, it sucks they're rolling on national TV a couple times because these
Right.
schedule makers don't know what they're doing. But
It's okay. 2022, 23. Just watch. The TNT Bulls are back.
I know. I'm waiting for it. Yeah, look, how many times were the Suns on national TV before the playoffs? I mean, not many.
Right.
So.
Right. So, yeah, no, definitely a lot to look forward to with this upcoming season. Um, anything else you want to talk about?
Uh, first game of the season. Give me game high. Player of the game. Game high. Who gets it? Piston.
I'm gonna I'm gonna give it to Zach. I think Zach is gonna have the best showing. I think the rest of the cast is definitely gonna hold their own, but I'm expecting a big game from Zach. I'm expecting at least 28, which is he can do that in his sleep at this point.
Right.
But I'm expecting at least 28 from Zach. At least I'm gonna go two highlight dunks.
Yeah. Okay. I,
I'm
I,
gonna go.
I can see that. I can see that. A couple of back
Yeah,
doors, maybe something on the break.
yeah, yeah. A little backdoor, maybe a little Caruso action with that. Maybe someone hits him on a breakaway from a steal. Um, yeah, I'm going Zach though. At least 28 points. Pretty good all around game. He's getting to the line more now, so
Yes.
I think that'll help his bottom line. What about you?
I got Vooch. I go Vooch for this one. I think the matchup's favorable, whether it's Olenek or Isaiah Stewart.
That's true. Barbecue chicken.
I think he's gonna. Oh man, for real. I think he's gonna feast in the post, and then I think he's gonna step out and hit a couple threes. Actually, get
Yeah,
that
pick and
jumper
pop.
going. Yeah. You see that with Lonzo. You talking about that earlier, just how like that chemistry where he's gonna see a lot of those screening rolls, just a lot of opportunities to score off after screening where that's his bread and butter. Like he can do that all night. So I think he's gonna put up monster numbers in the glass too, possibly. The Bulls have to establish what that secondary rebounder is gonna be too in the early goings, with Pat just getting back. He's not a traditionally, look at him as a profile because this guy is gonna grab a ton of rebounds anyway. And then he's playing a new position full time this year, so he's gonna have to settle into, can we get 8 rebounds a game from Pat or 7? If not in the beginning, then Vooch is gonna be the one getting 14, 15 instead of 12. So I
Right,
think the
right.
numbers are going to add up quick for him on the glass.
Thanks for checking out the first episode. Stick with us throughout the season, and we'll be dropping new episodes on a weekly basis, available on all major platforms.